Kadosh Boker Or, Masechet Sanhedrin Daf, Daf Yomi Daf, Samechei Amud Aleph 65a1 says the Mishnah, Baal Ov. What is Baal Ov Videoni? We know that there's different types of, like witchcraft or whatever, that, sorcerers and black magic. So he says, Ze Pitom. This is a Pitom, Amdaber Mishichyo, that he speaks from his armpits. Sounds interesting. Yeah. Ideoni is speaking through his mouth. These two people, they're going to get sikila. The ones that ask them, Ovidoni, they get an azara. So says the Gemara, Maishna hacha diktani bal ovidoni, Maishna gabe kritu diktani bal ov v'shiyurei leidoni. So what's the difference between, right, the bal ovidoni, right, that he's going to be chayav sikila, and what's the difference between chayav kritut, right, that it's written bal ov, right, and we're talking about idoni. What's going on? So Rabbi Yochanan Amar, ho'ilu shneim belav echad nemu. Since it says bal ovi idoni, it's one love. It's like one negative commandment. So therefore, that's why, right, it's only one avirah, meaning both of them, right? If a person did both of them, he's only chayav one chatat because it's brought down in one avirah. The Shaki says ideoni lefi shemo maaseh. Ideoni, there's no maaseh because remember he's doing with his mouth. So therefore, it's not. So he says, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, maishna bal ov dinakat. He said, so why did he say Bal Ov? Because it started the pasuk with it. The Shakish, why does he say like Rabbi Yochanan? Rav Papa says, Chalukim em mita, but there's going to be a difference in the chiyuv mita, which means that he's also in the chiyuv chatat, but also chiyuv mita. Meaning, according to him, the Yideoni is chayav chatat when he does it by itself, right? So too, if this person is going to do Ov and Yideoni together, he's going to be chayav two different chataot. Rabbi Yochanan, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, Chaluka de lashma chaluka, de mita lashma chaluka. He says the lav, right, is considered differentiating, and the chalukav mita is not considered differentiating. Okay, that means we said that the obligation to bring a korban chatat is talui ba'avera b'shogeg on zidono karet, but only the averot which are going to be differentiated in a lav are chayav different chataot, right, a different sin offerings. Chayav mita on avera b'mezid, right, has nothing to do with the chiyuv chatat in the case of the shogeg. Okay. So he says, so it comes out that the Ovi Deoni are going to be differentiated to do with Sekila, has nothing to do with the Chiyuv Chatat. Meaning, I don't care whether it's going to be one Chiyuv Chatat or two Chiyuv Chatats, that has nothing to do with the death penalty. The death penalty is Sekila. When a person does Ovi Deoni, it's going to be Sekila. Okay? So, Amalecha, he's going to say, Matnitin de Kritut Rabbi Kiva. He says, the Matnitin of Kritut is Shitat Rabbi Kiva. De Amar lo ba'ina Maaseh. According to Shitat Rabbi Kiva, even if a person does not do a Maaseh, he's still chayav karet, and therefore here again the same thing, and he's going to be also obligated a korban chatat. So therefore here, right, the fact that a person did the bal ovi deoni is going to be chayav chatat, even though he didn't do anything. Everything's with the mouth. He did everything with the mouth. The shakish nehidelo by Rabbi Kiva maaser rabba maasezuta by. But according to the shakish, you don't need a big action, but you still need a small action. You still need something. Okay, megadef. What is the maaser there? Megadef is the one that blasphemy, the one that does the blessing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, euphemism. Right? So he says, Akimat sfatav have maseh. The fact that he's moving his lips, that in itself is already maseh. So Baal Ov also then, Ma'ik Maseika, right? So says the Gemara, Hakashat zrotav have maseh. No. The Baal Ov, when he's moving his arms, that is the maseh. Meaning it's not just something through speech, it's through moving of the arms. So it is a mamash maseh. Fa'afilu labaran, even according to the rabbis. But Tanya, we learned to the right. I thought you're only going to be chayav when you have a maaseh. For example, korban, which is zibuach, kitur, the ketoret, nisuch, the wine libations, ishtachava, bowing down. But Amar Shakish says to the Shakish, who's the one that says ishtachava is going to be chayav? It's Rabbi Akiva. He said you don't need a maaseh. So Rabbi Yochanan says even if it's going to be Rabbanan, the fact that you bend down, that is a maaseh. Meaning bowing down is an action. So according to him, it's going to be an action. So hashta. Now, according to the Shakish, kefifat kumato, according to Rabbanan lo avi maaseh, hakashat zrotav debal ov havi maaseh, that is going to be a maaseh. So says the Gemara, ki kamar Shakish nami, when did the Shakish say this? To do with Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbanan, no. So says the Gemara, yahachi if so, right? Yatzam megadef u bal ov mi baile. So this comes to exclude a megadef or bal ov. So he says, ela amar ula, but rather ula says, b'mekater l'shed. We're talking about your mekater to a shed. Right, to a demon. So Rava comes and he says, he says, one second, if you're going to bring a ketoret to a shed, that's avodah zarah. Remember, ketoret is a general service. Avodah, that doesn't matter. So you do that's avodah zarah. So Amalei Rava says mekater l'shel avodah zarah. So he says Elama Rava b'mekater lechaber. What does that mean? We're talking about that the person was doing the ketoret for of. It means you're not doing it as a god. You're not doing it as a god. You're doing it to do the kishuf. Meaning the kishuf is the sorcery, the black magic. Meaning you're not doing it because you think they're a god. You just want to do the black magic. So part of the black magic is doing it this way. So Amalei Abaye comes and he says, he says it's considered chover chaver. So says Gemara, yes, but Torah amra chover zeh b'skila. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, chover chaver echad, chaver gadol vecha chaver katan, va'afinu nechashim akravim. Even if it's going to be nechashim akravim. So Amar Abaye says, hilkach therefore, haiman de tzamid zibura v'akrava, the one that's going to be mechaber, whether it's going to be with a devoran akrav. So imagine you're putting a bee with a scorpion and you're putting them together through a lachash. Even though you have the kavanah that they're not going to get damaged, it's still a sur. Meaning you wanted to do this so they don't bug you. You got a bee that wants to sting you. You have a scorpion. What do? You say a lahash, boom. They get snatched together. They can't move. Still a sur. Rabbi Yochanan Ma'ishna de Kfifa Komatol Rabbanan Avi Maseh. He says, 1 second. According to Rabbi Yochanan, explain to me why is it that when you bend down, you bow, that's a maaseh. But when you, it's not sure. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, yes. But according to Rabbanan, akimat sfatayim, no. Why? What's the difference in moving the lips and bowing down? So he says, Amarava shani megadef ol v'yeshno balev. He says megadef is different because it's also in the heart. Okay. Samechei Amud Bet 65b. So Mativ Rabbi Zera, so Rabbi Zera comes and he asks the following question: Yatsu edim zomim. This comes to exclude edim zomim. She'en by maaseh, that they don't have maaseh. V'amai why? Halitznu balav. He says you don't have it. You don't have it in the heart. So Amar Rava comes and he says Shani edim zomim. It's different edim zomim. Hol v'yeshno bekol. What does that mean? You still have the kol. What does that mean? That it's not chashiv maaseh. The kol of Rabbi Yochanan la maaseh. He says what? But it's not a maaseh. By Itman it was written chasama bekol, right? V'niga bekol. He says whether it's going to be that you came and you did chasima bekol with your mouth. Imagine every single time the animal wants to eat, you scream at it, and therefore it comes back up. It's not going to eat. You just did chasima lo tachsom shor b'disho. You're not allowed to muzzle the animal, but you just did it with the kol. So if you did chasama bekol or hiniga bekol on Shabbat, you came and you were maniged, or not on Shabbat, but you did it with two animals together. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, you're going to be chayav. The Shakis says you're going to be patur. So it comes out that you see from here that kol, right, is considered a maaseh. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan Amar chayav akimat piva v'maaseh. The Shakis says patur because it's not considered a maaseh. You're right. I had to switch it. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yochanan, moving of the lips is a maaseh. According to the Shakish, it's not a maaseh. So he says Elamar Rava shane edim zomim hoil v'yeshnam b'riyah. The ikar chiyuv of edim zomim is not because of what they're testifying. It's because of what they're looking. They're looking. What does that mean? Right? They are testifying that they saw something. The seeing was not an action. It's not the fact of what they're talking. They're talking, they're just expressing what they saw. But what is really be'emet the edim zomim? What they saw. When you come to Bedin, you're a witness. What is the main part of the witness? The main part of the witness is what he saw. The telling over is you're just telling me a story. But really, be'emet, the kind of what you're doing by any type of a testimony is mashata ro'eh, what I saw. What did you see? Because everything has to do with seeing. Nothing to do with anything else. You're right. We have a special deen that you cannot, because writing, you cannot express yourself the same way as saying. But that's a technical issue. The technical issue is we want you to relate it. If there was such a thing that I could read your brain, right, with your whatever it is, you understand? What's the problem? And I know 100% it's accurate, right? What's the problem? Again, the Torah says, "Mipihem v'lo mipketam," it's come from their mouth. But let's say ke'ilu, let's say I would invent it, and meaning the ikar was the riyah. The riyah is not an action. The seeing is not an action. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Bal ov. What is a bal ov? Zem daber ben aprakim ben atzilei dav. Something that's speaking, whether it's going to be from his armpits, right, or from ben prakim. The oni is maniach etzem yadua. He puts this etzem in his mouth and then he speaks. Mamash, he puts a bone in his mouth. Huh? Well, it's not a gulgulut shalem. It's an etzem. הוא לא יכול לשים גולגולת, אבל etzem, right? So he says, Meitvei vaya ke'ov me'eretz kolech. My love, we're not talking about the mishtai ke'orche. We're talking about that the met is medaber kedarko. So he says, no, the salik yativ, they bring him up, right? Ben aprakim mishtai, and then he starts speaking. So Tashima, we're going to bring a proof. Atomer Aisha el Shaul Elokim raiti. So she comes, she tells Shaul, I saw Elokim. Olim min haaretz. Right? This is basically the neshama of Shmuel Hanavi. My love, we're not talking about the mishtai korche that is speaking normally. Again, we're talking about that Shaul, he brought up the neshama of Shmuel Hanavi, and Shmuel Hanavi was very, very afraid, right? Because he didn't understand what was going on, and all of a sudden he's bringing his neshamas coming back. He didn't understand what was going on, and Shaul just wanted to find out what was going to happen. This is when Shaul was going to die. So Shmuel Hanavi told him that he's going to die in war, him and his children, right? And he still went out to war, right?
Shmuel was dead before Shaul.
Yes.
And Shaul revived him.
Shaul not revived him. Shaul went to a sorcerer or sorceress, and she brought up the neshama of Shemuel. And Shemuel was very, very afraid of what was going on because he didn't understand. So they said that he was afraid of Yom Adin, right? Because every single year there's the concept. And what happened is that when he was all afraid and he came back, Shaul basically told him, listen, I have to find out what's going on. So he went and he said, you're going to go out to war and you're going to die, you and your children. And he still went out to war, knowing that he was going to die. But that just shows you that he was a Bechir Hashem at the end of his life. Meaning that even though he knew he was going to, the majority of people you come, you're going to tell them, listen, you're going to die. What do? They run away. They don't want to die. He knew he was going to die. And he knew that he can't run away. Hashem is going to get him no matter what. So what happened? Well, yeah. Yes, that's the story. Yeah. So he says, right? Okay. So he comes and he says, Lo diati ben aprakim mishtai. Fine. Tell Rabbi, we learn to the Braita. Bal ov echad amale bizchuro. What happens if you have whether the Bal ov is going to come and bring the met and he puts it on his ever, on his male organ, or echad anishal begulgolet, or he has a skull. What's the difference? Male bezachor eno lekederko. It's not normal, right? So because basically what's happening is that it's a fuch. It comes the legs first and then the head. Ve'eno le b'Shabbat. It does not come up on Shabbat. But if you do it with the gulgolet, it could come up even on Shabbat and even kedarko. Again, this is all in sorcery. I don't know. These are rules in sorcery, so I don't know. Fine. Ole, says the Gemara. Where does he go up? Hakame he's in front of him. Elaima one kedarko. He's going to answer on normally, and he's going to answer even on Shabbat. So Torah asks Rabbi Akiva. Amalo mayim yom yomayim. What's the difference between Shabbat and other days? Amalo ma givar miguvrin. So he says, what's difference a man from other men? So Elmaleh, he says, Demare tzave, Shabbat nami, Demare tzave. He says, because that's what his master wants. So too, Shabbat, that's what he wants. Meaning Shabbat doesn't want that they're going to be speaking about the Bal Ovi Doni on Shabbat. So it doesn't work on Shabbat. Again, these are the rules. So Elmaleh comes and he says, Hachi kamina lecha. This is what I meant to tell you. Mi emar dayina Shabbat. Who told him that it's Shabbat? Amalo nehar sabation yochiach. Nehar sabation is going to know. Why? Because even though the entire week it flows, on Shabbat, this river, Nehar Sabation, does not flow. It stops. We don't know. We don't know where they are. Aseret HaShvatim are lost. If you knew where they were, we're not lost. We don't know. Yeah? So Amalo, he comes and he says, right? Bal Ovi Yochiach, Kivro Shel Aviv Yochiach. Right? She'en Malina Sham B'Shabbat. The kever of your father is going to be mochiach because there's no fire that comes out on Shabbat. Right? Which means that since he says every single day the kever of his father, there was fire coming out. On Shabbat, there was no ginam. So since there's no ginam because of Yom Shabbat, so therefore that's going to be a proof that there's no, right? So Amalo, he says, bizito biyashto vekilalto. Right? He comes, so he told, Tanus Rufus told Rabbi Akiva, you know that you just embarrassed my father, you disgraced him, and you cursed him. Because basically, since you said that he's going to be judged in Ginam, you say it's kilu that you did all these three things. Fine. Shoeli ov, right? Hainu doresh alamitim. Same thing. What's going on? When it says shoeli ov yideoni, that is doresh alamitim. You're asking the dead people what's going on. They do this they do all these things, yeah. So he says doresh alamitim. Okay. It's not avodah zarah. It's shoel ovidoni. It's not avodah zarah. Doresh hamitim. כדתניא דורש אמיתי, זה מרעיב עצמו והולך עולם בבית הקברות, כדי שתשרה עליו רוח טומאה. Yeah, that's what you did. You made yourself very hungry. You went and you slept in the bet hakvarot, and then in order that he should have ruach tumah. Rabbi Akiva מגיע למקרה זה, היה בוכה, he used to cry. ומה המרעיב עצמו? If you're going to come and you're going to be מרעיב עצמך, which means you're going to cause yourself to be hungry, כדי שתשרה עליו רוח טומאה, לשולל עליו רוח טומאה, מרעיב עצמו כדי שתשרה עליו רוח טהרה, הלכה כמלחמה, he used to cry. He says if a person comes and is able to fast, and then he's able to bring upon himself ruach tumah, alakha kama v'chama, if a person is going to come and he's going to bring to himself, right, the ruach ta'ara, right, in order to become pure. So, aval ma eseh shavnotenu garmu lanu, but what are we going to do because of our sins that they caused us? Shneimar b'zeh pasuk, ki im avonotechem hayu mavdilim benechem leben elokechem. That if it was going to be that your sins are going to separate between you and your God. So, Amar Rava comes and he says, Ibayu tzadike baru alma, if the tzadikim wanted to create the world, shneimar ki im avonotechem hayu mavdilim. So, Rava bara gavra, Shadre lekamed Rabbi Zera. So this is a very famous Gemara, by the way. This is a very famous Gemara, but here you see about creating the golem. So here you have it. Rava came and he created a human being. And he sent it in front of Rabbi Zera. Have a kamishtai by there. Rabbi Zera speaking to him. He didn't answer him. Amarle, he tells him, Min chaverayat? He says, what? You're the Nivraim from our friends? Hadar leafrech. Go back to the afar. And what happened? That's exactly what happened. Meaning he starts speaking to him, but he's not speaking. Yeah, of course he did. How did they create it? The golem comes from the afar.
But the creation from the golem did the golem Mikla, no?
No, Maral Miklat.
That's the golem. There were other.
There were many golems. This is the first one. This is Rava. Rava did a golem. Yeah, Rava just made a golem. He just got here.
Shvatim, they used to make a.
Through Sefer Yetzirah, 100%. Yeah, through Sefer Yetzirah. So he went and he said, go back to the afar. So that's what happened. They were sitting, they were learning with Sefer Yetzirah. They created an egel meshulash, an egel gadol. They were eating it. So Tana Rabbanam, we learned in the Braita, right? Okay, now we're going back to the Kishuf. But very interesting. No, two different Gemarot. You see, they're able to create an animal, or they're able to create a human being. Okay. Shema? Let's go, we're done. We learned in the Braita, Meonen. What does that mean? Rabbi Shimon says, he's putting 7 types of different things on the eye. What does that mean here? He's taking Shichvat Zera from 7 people. And he's putting it on the eyes. And he does Keshafim. But Chachamim come and they say, he's doing Achizat Einayim. Achizat Einayim is like illusions, right? Magical illusions. Rabbi Kiva Omer, he's checking out the times. ואומר, היום יפה לצאת, מחר יפה ולקח לבודי ערב ערבי שביעיות, חיטין יפות, יקרה חיטיניות מיות רעות. He comes and he starts saying about the different times, what's going on. תנא בנם מילון תל הברייתא, מנחש שזה אומר פיתו נפלה מפיו, מקלו נפלה מידו, בנו קרא למאחריו. What is מנחש? מנחש, נחש, right? It's talking about that if his bread fall out of his mouth, or his makel fall out of his hands, or his son comes and he's calling from behind him, and Orev comes and calls behind, tzviv siko baderech, nachash mimno v'shual mismolo, he's got a nachash on his right and a shual misemolo, or the other way around, right? Al tatchil bi, Samichvav Mudalef on the top, Al tatchil bi shachritu, right? Rosh Chodesh Motzei Shabbatu, meaning that in all these things, I'm not gonna, whatever, it's, it's in the morning, it's Rosh Chodesh, it's all these things, like it's, again, this is all nachash. So he says, that they're coming and they're doing all these different things, whether it's going to be with, chulda, ofot, dagim, and other things as well.